Hey everyone, I've got a really awesome video for you guys today. We are going to be working on implementing card attacking, which is going to tie our card game together really nicely and change it from just dragging cards around the screen to an actual playable game with life points and everything. I'm going to be implementing the attacking similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel or Magic the Gathering Arena, where you select a card on your battlefield and then you select a card you want to attack. We're also going to be working on a direct attack, so if there's no cards on the opposite battlefield, you'll attack your opponent's life points directly. And lastly, we'll implement a discard pile or a graveyard where defeated cards will move to. I'll leave the playlist link in the description, which contains the 8 previous videos leading up to this one. And as always, if you're subscribed, please consider doing me a huge favour and setting those notifications to all so the YouTube algorithm knows that you want to see my videos and that you like me. So to get started here, we're going to open up our Battle Manager script and come down to the opponent turn function. And we're going to make a couple of changes in here. The first one is this: if empty monster card slots dot size equals 0. We're going to change that to exclamation marks equals 0. And then we'll move this try play card with highest attack function. We're going to move that up and we'll paste it into this if condition instead of end opponent turn. And we can get rid of this return as well. And that change is just to stop the opponent ending their turn early, because after that they are going to try and attack. And before we attack, we have to check if there's any opponent cards on the battlefield to attack with. So we need some way of storing which opponent cards are on the battlefield, so I'm going to come up to the top of the script and create a new variable called opponent cards on battlefield and assign it equal to open and close square brackets so that Godot knows it's an array. And now we have to populate this array, so let's come down to the try play card with highest attack function. And after we remove the card from the opponent's hand that we're going to play, let's add the card that we're going to play into the opponent's cards on battlefield array, and we'll do that using the append function. And now we can come back up into the opponent's turn function, and down here where we want to attack, we'll create an if statement checking if opponent cards on battlefield dot size is not equal to 0, so if there are any opponent cards on the battlefield. And then we want to loop through every card on the opponent's battlefield, and each card will then get an attack. But we don't want to loop through this opponent cards on battlefield array that we created, because cards, if they're defeated, will be removed from this array and it'll get messy. So we're going to make a duplicate of this array and we'll loop through the duplicate instead. So we'll create a new variable called enemy cards to attack, and we'll assign it equal to opponent cards on battlefield dot duplicate. And now we'll loop through every item in this duplicate array, so we'll go for card in enemy cards to attack. And here's where we check if we're doing a direct attack or if there's cards in the opposite field that we can attack. So we'll create an if statement if player cards on battlefield.size is equal to 0. I put not equals here, but make sure to put equals equals. I'll go back later and fix that. So if there's no cards on the player's battlefield, we will perform a direct attack. And now this player cards on battlefield array doesn't exist yet, so let's go to the top of the script and we'll create that variable and assign it equal to an open and close square bracket. And now we have to populate this array, so if we open up our card manager script and we come down to the finish drag function, this is where we handle placing a card onto the battlefield, so we can get a reference to our battle manager here and access our array, our player cards on battlefield array, and we'll append into that array the current card being dragged, which is the card we are placing in the battlefield. So now that we're populating that player cards in battlefield array, we'll come back into our battle manager script and we'll come down here to where we're performing a direct attack, and we'll call a new function called direct attack. Then we'll create this function, and just to test it, inside this function we'll just print direct attack. And now I'm going to go into my project settings. I'm going to go to display window and just change the mode into windowed mode from full screen so I can see the output, so I can just see what's being printed. And then you can give it a run to test it, and you can see when I hit end turn the opponent plays a card but nothing is printed, and that's because I realized I had the sign the wrong way around. So here I made an else statement and I put the direct attack into the else, and I just put regular attack in the if statement. Then we'll come down and make that attack function, and inside we'll just print attack. And if we give this a run now and just end our turn, you can see that the opponent plays a card and direct attacks because we have nothing on our field. And now if we play a card to our side of the field and end our turn, you can see that the opponent attacks twice, and that's just a regular attack, and he's attacking twice because he attacks once for each card he has, so that is perfect. And next thing we want to do is flesh out this direct attack function. So we're going to take in an attacking card and an attacker, and then up here where we're calling the function, we'll pass in card, which is the current card in the loop, and we'll pass in opponent because that's who's attacking. Then I'm going to go into my try play card with highest attack function, and I'm going to yoink these two tween lines. So this is to animate a card to a position. We're just going to take this and we'll paste it into our direct attack function. And when I say yoink there, I mean copy and paste, not cut and paste, just in case that trips anybody up. And the thing we want to tween is our attacking card being passed in, and we're going to move it to new pos, which is a new variable we're going to create. And we'll create that new pos variable now, and we'll just assign it equal to a vector 2, and a vector 2 needs an x and a y coordinate. And we want to move this card to a different position depending on if it's the opponent attacking or the player attacking. So I'm going to do an if statement to check if the attacker is opponent. And also above that, I'm going to create a new variable called new pos y. And now if the attacker is the opponent, I'm going to assign new pos y equal to 1080, and then I'll add an else statement, so if it's the player attacking, I'll set new pos y equal to 0. Then where we're assigning new pos down here to a vector 2, for x we're going to put attacking card.position.x, and for y we'll just use new pos y. And then we want to wait a second, and we already have the code to do that, so I'm just going to go to somewhere in our code where we've done it in the script. And then, because we're going to be doing this so often, I'm going to extract this out into its own function. So I'm going to create a new function called wait that's going to take in wait time. And then I'm going to copy these lines here, battletimer.start and await battletimer.timeout. I'm going to copy that, paste it into our function, and I'm going to add a line to say battletimer.waittime equals the wait time that we are passing in. And now in this script, wherever we are waiting a second, we can replace that by calling the wait function, and make sure to use the await keyword as well, so it actually does, the code does suspend on this line. Await, wait, and then pass in 1 second or 1.0. And then back up in our direct attack function, after we animate the card, we're going to wait 0.15 just to give it a little bit of time to animate. And then here, the next thing we want to do is we want to check if it's the opponent or player attacking, and we want to deal damage to the opponent or player depending on who's attacking. We won't implement that fully just yet, but the logic is there. And then after that, we want to animate the attacking card back to where it came from. So you can just copy these two tween lines up here, but make sure to change it to var tween2 and then tween2.tween property, because if you have more than one tween running at the same time, it can just mess things up. One other thing to do before I forget is before we start animating the card, let's set the attacking card's z position equal to 5, so it'll render over everything else. Then back down here in our second tween, we're going to change new pos to attacking card.card slot card is in .position, so that we move it back to the card slot it came from. And after that, we're going to wait 1 second, and then we're going to reset our attacking card z index back to 0. And instead of using 5 and 0 here, you really should be setting it to a constant value, but I was lazy. If we run this now, we can see that we get an error when the opponent attacks us, saying card slot card is in doesn't exist in opponent card script, and that's right because it doesn't. We only have that in the card script, so we can copy this variable from the card script and just paste it into the opponent script. And now we have to set that variable when the card is played, so let's go into the battle manager, go down to where we play a card, and then down here we'll put card with highest attack .card slot card is in equals random empty monster card slot, which is the card slot the card's being played in. And now, if we give this a run, and we just end our turn after playing nothing to our field, you can see the opponent plays a card, and then that card attacks us directly, and that looks really good. And now we just have to implement health or life points for the player and the opponent to subtract from when a card attacks directly. So at the top of the Battle Manager script, we'll create two new variables, player health and opponent health. And we'll also create a new constant called starting health, and we'll set that equal to 10 or whatever you want. And then in the ready function, we'll set player health and opponent health equal to starting health. And now we need something to actually display that health to the player. So we're going to come into our main scene. We're going to right click on main up here, add a new child node, and we'll add a rich text label. We'll call this player health. Then in the inspector, I'm going to go to the text property and set 0 for this. And then I'll duplicate that player health node and I'll make a new one and I'll call it opponent health. And then we'll just adjust the transform positions to make the player health somewhere visible on the player's battlefield and the opponent's health on the opponent battlefield. I'm also going to set both of their scale to 2.0 just to make them a bit bigger and more legible. Then we're going to go into our battle manager script, and in the ready function where we're setting our player health, we're also going to update our rich text label to display that player health. So we'll get a reference to the text label and we'll get that .text property and assign it equal to, and we'll use the string function because player health is an int and we need it to be a string, and then we'll put player health in there, and we'll do the same for opponent health and make sure that's the opponent health reference there. And now if we give this a run to test it, you should see that our player health and our opponent health rich text labels are being updated to 10, which is our constant starting health, so that is working correctly. And next up, we actually want to deal damage in the direct attack function. So up here in the ready function, I'm going to copy these two lines and I'll paste them down here where we're checking if the attacker is opponent. And if the attacker is opponent, we're going to say player health equals player health minus attacking card dot attack. So we'll subtract the attacking card's attacked from the player health. And then we'll copy these two lines and paste this into the else. So the else is if the player is the one attacking. And then we'll change these two values to opponent health, since it's the opponent health that we're going to be subtracting from. And then we'll change this rich text label to opponent health as well. And then lastly, in this string function, we're going to put opponent health instead of player health. And then since we don't want our health to go negative, we want the minimum it can be to be 0. We're going to use this max function, passing in 0 as the first value, and then what we already have is the second value. And we'll do that for the player health and the opponent health. And now if we give this a run and just end our turn, you can see that the opponent attacks and it takes from our life points, which is perfect. I'm just going to make a couple quick adjustments in this direct attack function. I'm going to cut this Z index line, attacking cards, change the Z index and paste it above the weight. And then up here where we're calling direct attack, I'm going to put the await keyword before it, so it waits for that function to finish before the code continues. And now that our direct attack function is pretty much finished, we can come down to our attack function and start fleshing this one out. And our attack function is going to take in an attacking card, a defending card, and also the attacker. And now up here where we're calling attack, we need to pass those three things in. And we know the attacking card is just the current card in the loop, but the defending card, we're going to have to define that. So I'm going to create a new variable called card2attack, and we'll assign it equal to player cards on battlefield, that array. And now we want to get a random element in this array. And to get a random element, we're actually doing that with another array just down here. And we could use this code, but actually someone in my comments pointed out a much easier way to do this. We can use the shorthand pick random function, and it's just a lot cleaner and easier. So I'll use it to replace the code I had before, and then back up here, I can use player cards on battlefield.pickRandom. And now we have our attacking and defending cards. We can pass that into the attack function. And we'll also use that await keyword as well before calling the function. And lastly, we will pass in opponent. Then down here in the attack function, we'll set the attacking card Z index to 5, similar to indirect attack. And then we want to get the position that we want to move the card to, so I'm going to create a new variable called newPos and assign this equal to, and now we could just assign this to the position of the defending card, but in case we want to add an offset here, I'm going to assign it equal to a new vector 2, and for the x, I'm going to put defending card.position.x, and for the y, I'll put defending card.position.y plus, and then I'm going to use this new constant battlepos offset, and up at the top of the script I'll declare that constant and set it equal to 25. And now that we have the position to move the card, we can use these two tween lines from before to move the card to that new position, and then we'll wait 0.15, and then we'll use the tween lines again, but make sure to rename it to tween2 and tween2.tween property. And we want to be moving the attacking card back to the card slot the card came from. And the next thing we want to work on is the cards dealing damage to each other. So we'll start with the defending card. So we'll say the defending card's health equals, and then we're going to use the max function here so that the health can't go below 0. And we'll use 0 for the first thing being passed in, and for the second thing being passed in, we'll put defending card.health minus attacking card.attack. And now we need to update this value on the rich text label. So we're going to go defending card.getNode. And then if we open up the card scene, we want to get this health node here, whatever you called this. I just called mine health. So we'll come back here and we'll go defending card.getNode health, and we'll set that equal to, and then we're going to use the string function here since defending card.health is an int and we need a string, and then we'll pass in defending card.health. And I forgot to put .text in here because we're changing the text property of the rich text label, so make sure you put that in. And now we want to do the same thing but for the attacking card, so I'll duplicate these two lines, and I'll change defending card to attacking card and attacking card to defending card. Then we're going to wait 1 second and set the attacking card Z index back to 0. Then the next thing we want to do is destroy those cards if their health has reached 0. So we'll make an if statement saying if attacking card.health is 0. Then we'll call a new function called destroy card, and we'll pass in the attacking card. And then we'll come down and we'll create this destroy card function, and we want to take in the card to destroy, and we also want to take in a second argument card owner, which is going to make this function much more reusable. Now up here where we're calling destroy card, we have to pass in the card owner, and we can do that by just passing in the attacker that we are passing into the attack function. So we'll take this, pass it in down here, and that's perfect. Also I misspelt the destroy card function there, so I'm just going to fix that. And then we're going to check if the defending card's health has reached 0, and if it has, we'll destroy card and we'll pass in the defending card this time. And for the card owner here, we can't pass in attacker because it's not the attacking card's health that's reached 0. So we'll do an if check. We'll check if the attacker is player, and if it is, then the defending card is the opponent's, so we'll pass in opponent for card owner. And then we'll do an else statement, so if the attacker is the opponent, then it's the player that's defending, so we'll put in destroy card, defending card, pass in player. And then we have to flesh out the destroy card function, which is going to do two things. It's going to move the card to the discard pile, and we also have to reset any code to do with the card, like it might be in the player cards on battlefield array, or we have to clear the card slot that the card is in, so the card is no longer in the slot, that sort of stuff. And the first thing we're going to do is create that discard pile or graveyard, or whatever you want to call it. So we'll come into the main scene, we'll right click on main, we'll add a new child node, node 2D, and we're going to call this player discard. And then we'll right click on player discard, add child node, and I'm going to add a sprite 2D. Then I'm going to select player discard node, and in the inspector I'm going to change the scale to 0.6 to match our battlefield. Then I'm going to select the sprite 2D for player discard, and I want to give it a sprite or a texture, so I'm going to drag my card slot PNG into the texture property. Then I'm going to adjust the player discard's transform position to move it to the right of the player's battlefield. And then I'll duplicate the player discard node. I'll rename this one opponent discard, and I'll move it up to the left of the opponent's battlefield. Then I'll go back into our battle manager script, and down in the destroy card function, I'm going to create a new variable called new pos. Then I'm going to do an if statement to check if the card owner is the player. And if it is, I'll set new pos equal to, and I'll get that reference to the player discard node we created, and then dot position. And otherwise, if the card owner is the opponent, new pos is going to equal the opponent discard dot position. Then we'll grab these tween lines that we've used so many times before, we'll copy and paste them, and we'll change the thing to tween to the card being passed in, and make sure the target destination is new pos. Then we can get rid of this stuff, we don't need it. Then, back up here in the attack function, we'll go just above where we're calling to destroy the cards, and we'll create a new variable called card was destroyed, and we'll set it equal to false. And now, in both of these if conditions, we'll add a line saying card was destroyed equals true. And then below all this, we'll do a check to see if a card was destroyed, and if it was, we will wait 1 second. Now if we give this a run and place something in our field and end our turn, you can see that the enemy places a card and attacks, and then we get an error, and that's because we haven't got the health and attack set up properly. And it's saying that this error is in the card script, so if we open up that card script, I'm going to add var health and var attack, and I'll also open up the opponent card script, and that one already has var attack there, so I'll add var health. And now we have to make sure these variables are being assigned, so if I go over to the deck script and we come down to where we are instantiating the cards, then I'm going to set that health variable we just created, so I'll do new card.health equals, and we're already accessing the card's health from the card database here, so I'm going to cut this line and I'll paste it here. And then where we're setting the rich text labels text, I'll just do new card.health instead. Then I'm going to copy that new line we created, and I'll do the same thing for attack. And I've kind of mixed up attack and health a little bit here, make sure you correct that. And also make sure you're assigning the attack and health to the right thing from the card database. Then we're going to go over to the opponent deck and do the same thing, and it looks like we've already got it set up for attack, so we only need to do it for health. And now if we run this again and do the same thing where we just play something to our battlefield and end our turn, you can see that the opponent attacks, and now we don't get a hard crash error, but if we X out of this, you can see that we are getting an error with our tween here. If we click on it, it'll bring us here where the problem is, and we can just put attacking card.card slot cards in dot position, which we forgot to put. Now if we give this a run, play something to our field and end our turn, you can see that the opponent plays a card, attacks our card is destroyed and goes to the graveyard or to the discard pile, and everything looks like it's working really well. And there is a couple of bugs here, and we haven't implemented the player being able to attack yet, but I think this video's gone on long enough, so I'm going to end it here. I have the footage for part 2 already recorded, so it should be out really soon. If you found this video helpful, please consider dropping a like to help support the channel, and subscribe and turn on notifications for upcoming tutorials and devlogs.